Hey, y'all. I've got a good one for you today. Uh, Last year was my friend Katherine Ivy's first year in production with her market garden, and she did really well with it. So we did a Zoom call, and I was talking to her, and I wanted to ask her some questions, things that I personally wanted to know going into my first year next year, I hope. And yeah, I wanted to ask her because she did so well with it. She has a great model that she's using, and she was able to get through COVID and all that and still roll right along. And even if you don't farm to sell, I think you should watch this anyway. You could get some use out of it because chances are you have some surplus. And she is on a fairly small scale, and the way her model is set up, I feel like it can be shrunk down or expanded probably as far either way as you wanted. It's just a really great model. She made it work. So I think you guys will enjoy this. So here goes.
All right, so talking about the 2020 season here, I, this was like your first big season since you've had this garden rolling, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so first of all, what I know, but some people may not know, what was your sales model?
Okay, so yeah, this year was odd because of the coronavirus. Um, the year before, I had been selling just a little bit of stuff, a little bit of basil, some sugar snap peas, and stuff like that, at a little tiny grocery store, little produce store, which used to be mine and is now somebody else's. And so, because of, you know, early on, everything got shut down, I didn't know what was going to happen. I decided to do kind of a direct sales thing where I would go onto Facebook, take some orders, and then drive around and drop things off. And it kind of actually turned out to be almost like a CSA slash direct sales type thing because there were a number of people that just wanted the same thing every week. And if I had something new coming in, like say I had carrots for the first time, I'd say, hey, do you want to add carrots to that? And so then they'd say yes or no, and then I would change that. So in some ways, I'd had boxes that were kind of the same every time. And then if I had extra, like if I had way too much basil, I would actually go out onto our Wrangle community page and say, hey guys, I've got extra basil. Does anybody, let me know if you want some. And so then I'd have new people come in and say, oh yeah, and I'd have to go to different places. And so that was kind of the sales model. Was a kind of a CSA slash direct sales sort of thing. And I think because that worked really good, I'm going to do that again next year. And so is that kind of what you're asking? Not like, was I following somebody else's thing?
That's exactly what I was asking.
Okay.
And that was where I was going to go next is you were sort of forced into it because of COVID. But you're saying now that the sales model worked and you're probably going to stick with it. So it worked for the customers and you, I'm thinking.
Yeah, and there's some little things I need to fiddle with, but I've actually been thinking about recently, and I'll probably put out some videos on it. Because it was like trying to get the timing that they had to be at home when I was dropping off, and so that was a little bit, not the easiest thing for customers, and just some things like that I kind of need to fiddle with to make it easier for me and for everybody else. And so I'll be changing a few things, but I think I'm going to stick with that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, other thing is, so you got a pretty small farm there. The space is limited right now, and it looked to me like you had a pretty good diversity. Did you, when you made your crop selections, did you go more? Let me rewind a little bit. So for people that don't know, your garden you sell, obviously you're growing to sell, but also you're in a unique situation because you're in Alaska and stuff, and it's better for you to grow your own food because some of that stuff you can't even buy, right?
Right.
So when you did your seed orders and your crop selection, was that aimed at you and your needs first, or was that aimed at profit, or how did you go about doing that?
Well, I really started with the basis of it is, kind of what can grow here, because I'm limited. There's some things I could grow in the greenhouse, like corn, but I'm not, there's so many things that can't grow outside. And so I started out with, what can grow here. And everything. There are a couple of crops where I think I grow them kind of just for customers and not really for me, like basil. Like I can only use maybe a little bit of basil. I'm not a huge basil fan. I like a little bit of it in some spaghetti sauce and stuff like that, you know. So that's probably mostly grown for customers. I'm trying to think of, like, even the cucumbers. I'm not a huge cucumber fan, although I really like the ones I grew this year. So now I'm kind of a cucumber fan, but I wouldn't have, you know, so that's kind of for customers. But a lot of it's kind of dual purpose. Like carrots, I like carrots, wheat carrots. So carrots are good for customers and for me. Kale, I eat kale. Other people eat kale, you know. So there, and the potatoes I wasn't going to grow for other people. So then there's things that are just for us, really. So that's like potatoes. And I'm trying to think of anything else. That's probably the one crop I can think of that's just for us. And maybe there'll be some other things I do. But so yeah, there's a big overlap in the center where it's something that I could eat and customers want. And then on the other end, a few things where I grow it really just for customers, and then like potatoes just for me. So.
And is that working out for you? Or in the future, are you going to say, I'm going more to the customers, or I'm going more to me?
Right. I'll probably do both. Because in order to, you know, I'm selling just kind of a limited number of different things. Salad mix, carrots, kale, chard, basil, you know, some cucumbers, some limited things because I don't want it to get too complicated for me to grow. But the more options I have, the more things. So one customer might, instead of spending just $25, they might spend $35 if I had a couple of different things. And so I kind of would like to add a few more crops that are for customers, and that maybe hopefully I want too, you know, that overlap would be awesome. But and I do am looking at expanding some things that I might just grow for myself. Like if I can get my big greenhouse and get some onions growing in there, some storage onions, I'm not going to sell those. They're really low price per pound, but yeah, that would be something I would do just for us, you know. And
so
yeah,
looking
so I'm looking at both things, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So looks like your sales model worked out, and your crop plan, diversity, everything's pretty much where you want it, plus or minus a few tweaks.
Right.
And going back to your garden space, you're obviously on a limited footprint there.
Yeah.
And do you feel like this year that you saturated your market? Do you want to get to more people, or can you sell more, or do you want to sell more? What is that looking like volume and sales and all of that?
Yeah. So something I noticed this last season was there were some things that people were asking for more and I had not grown enough of. So salad mix for sure. I had people saying, could I get 3 bags of that? And I said, gosh, I only have enough for 1 per person. So I would say that would almost double, and plus the restaurant that I was selling just a little bit to, they could use, instead of like my little 1 8-ounce bag, they could use, I think it was the 3 pounds that they used to buy from me when I had my little store of salad mix. And so that could be a lot bigger, which is why I'm really focusing on getting my greens bubbler set up and making sure I have 3 whole things, beds of lettuce and stuff like that. And just hopefully I've got it right this year. And then some things I got right, like right on. I felt like my basil with a bed, that's 20 feet, and then another bed, half of a bed, so a total of 30 feet of basil was just about right. I didn't, the year before I had planted too much too soon. It was coming on. I had to compost some of it. I couldn't. Oh, wow. I know. It's really sad, but I mean, I didn't have the time to process it. So I'm just like, oh shoot, And so things like that, I feel like I might be able to expand that a little bit, because the other thing is that I didn't do a ton of advertising. I went out on a Facebook, and then I almost had too many people and not enough stuff. And so I didn't go back on to the whole Wrangell community group as often, unless I had extras. And so I didn't do a lot of like outreach, and I think that if more, like I had people coming up to me saying, you know, after the season saying, "Oh, I heard you were selling stuff. Are you going to be selling next year?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get in touch with you." So I could have sold way more carrots. I mean, just yeah. So some things like I felt like you know, I'm not going to plant a whole lot more because I felt like what I had planted could have you know, can probably cover the people that are going to be interested. Like in kale, I think I probably had enough kale. I probably had enough basil. But other things like salad mix, I know I needed to bump up, and I could probably sell more carrots. And so, yeah, there's definitely some things that I could sell more of. Market is not saturated.
Okay, and that's interesting too, because what you're saying is that you didn't saturate was the salad mixes and the
Yeah.
carrots, and especially for the salad mixes, that's like the most dollars per foot in your bed,
Right.
which is that's awesome if that's what they want and that's
Yeah.
what you can do.
Yeah. So we'll see.
So talking for salad mix straight for the summer, which is for me is, I guess it's reality, but it's a real challenge.
Yeah, I think it is actually less so for me because we have the cooler climate, so I'm really lucky that way.
You have
Yeah.
awesome. And what about going to that time constraints? Are you time wise? I know you've expanded some, and you're about to go even a little bigger, hopefully next year.
Right.
Are you swinging that time wise, or are you crunching already, or is it just a matter of efficiency?
That's a really good question. This year, this coming season, I'm only going to have the same size that I had last season. I'm going to have to just shove it all in there because I don't think I'm going to get the soil into the expanded area soon enough to be able to actually use it. Maybe later in the fall I'll be able to do, well, anyway. And I'll hopefully be planting some more berries and stuff like that. But I think it's going to be fine, actually. I think it's going to be okay. What's going to get me for the space, I think, is if I want to plant more personal stuff like onions and potatoes, and I want more pounds of them for us, then that might actually get to be a little bit of a space constraint. But I'm not even sure. It might all fit in. I don't know. But yeah.
It all played out this year pretty well then.
Yeah, time-wise too, that was a good question you had because I was actually trying to cram everything into 2 days, like harvest one day, harvest and distribute the other day, so that I would have time to play. Because during the summer, actually Tyler has the summer. He works all winter, and then he has kind of the summer off. So we go up the river with the boat and stuff, and so I really would love to be able to keep my work time really constrained so that I have an opportunity to do other things. And so I don't know. I'm really a little bit nervous that if the more people I have, the more it's going to be really hard to try and cram it into just a couple of days without going crazy. So that's really something that's up in the air at this point too. I don't really know.
Or business.
Yeah, because I have felt like in those 2 days I was really kind of pushing it sometimes, and it was getting a little stressed out. And so if I'm going to be making more salad mix, I keep thinking maybe I'll have more efficiency with my big sink and bubbler, and stuff like that. Yeah. So maybe that'll save me time. So we'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.